Okay, so you should see that lovely recording in progress, or recording has started, and the transcription as well. I am looking for Miss Danielle Vollendorf. We have a new supervisor, and I would like for Danielle to pop on and tell everyone on the call hi. And maybe for those of you who don't know Danielle, to maybe give a little bit of background. Danielle, are you on?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yes, so I think for the most part, I would recognize almost everybody on the call. You may recall my name from a couple years past with Fond du Lac County and previous to Fond du Lac County with Washington County. I did take a little bit of a departure, went to DHS and DADCAP, worked with DADCAP most recently with their training and technology team, but really excited to start my new role with working with Carrie and all the food scientists and our recreational specialist, and working with Jim and getting to understand this section a little bit more. And you'll probably see my name popping up a whole lot more and having a lot more conversations with me moving into the future as well. But excited for joining everybody. I think I just passed my month with DADCAP in my newer role, so still very, very new, very fresh, lots of learning still occurring.
Yeah, so it's been a month and she's still with us. So
Yeah, exactly.
I told her when she started, I said, I think you know what we do, but we do a lot more than what you think you know. So yes,
Yes, very true to that. Yes.
the rec and the retail team have been keeping her very busy. So welcome, Danielle. And as for those of you who don't know, Danielle is also our current WEHA president. So as a former president, I am going to put a little plug in for WEHA this year. WEHA is also going to be the Region 4 conference and FDA regional seminar. It's going to be, I believe, September 17th through the 19th in beautiful La Crosse, Wisconsin. We're going to have multiple tracks. We're going to have our FDA partners at the conference. We're going to have speakers from other states. We're going to have an amazing keynote speaker. I also want to let everyone know that if you have a topic or a burning issue that you think all of us would love to hear about, please, please, please submit an abstract. You can find the link for the abstract on weha.net. We are not contacting speakers. We are using the abstract process, and the abstract process closes on March 17th. Anything from general environmental health, food, lead, radon, communication. I heard a fantastic speaker talk about trust at our bureau meeting, and I've already reached out to her because she's just amazing. So if you are interested, and if you think you have something we all want to know about, I strongly encourage you to submit an abstract for WEHA and come and tell us what you have going on. Nothing is too silly. All right. I will say, if you're not asking a question or if you're not wanting to speak up, just make sure you're on mute. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to build a little bit of interaction into this. So it looks like a lot of you already know how to use the reaction buttons. So the thumbs up or the heart or the clap. If you do want to ask a question, you can either use the chat. However, I would strongly encourage you to raise your hand. And then it should pop you up to the top of my queue. If not, one of my coworkers is going to help me monitor that as well. Raise your hand, and then we'll call on you, and you can ask your question. Everyone knows how to use the reactions and how to raise and lower hands. I'm seeing a thumbs up. Yay, all right. Great, okay. So we heard the requests for a roadshow. I know this isn't the same as in person, but we are giving you our virtual version of the Roadshow, and we're also covering data from 2024, so the 2024 year in review. So let's get going. I always like to kick off my sessions now or my trainings with DATCAP, who we are. So our mission, vision, and core values. You can find this on our landing page, on our website. We live and breathe by this. So again, our mission, we partner with all citizens of Wisconsin to grow the economy by promoting quality food, healthy plants and animals, sound use of land and water resources, and a fair marketplace. Our vision, we deliver efficient and effective programs and service to Wisconsin agriculture, consumer, and businesses to provide market confidence to enhance competitiveness and profitability. And our core values, we love those acronyms. So DATCAP, diversity, accountability, teamwork, customer service, and professionalism. I want to remind you, you are acting on behalf of DATCAP, so you may want to be thinking of this mission, vision, and core values as well. All right, so objectives. What are you gonna hope to get out of this? We're gonna review what's new, kind of as part of that virtual roadshow. Talk about committee work, what committee work has been happening. Also go through standardization information and data, which I know you all love to hear about. And then our expectations for 2025. So we're already into 2025. So some of you have already felt some of those expectations and recommendations that we're making, but we're going to cover them as well. So what's new in retail food? What is going on? Well, first off, we received documentation from McDonald's. That documentation can be found on SharePoint on the retail food landing page under announcements. I think if you just search SharePoint as well, if you just put in McDonald's, you should be able to find documentation for McDonald's. But we have a very good relationship with McDonald's corporate, Tracy Slowinski. So she always keeps us abreast to what's going on. And this is one of those things she felt we needed to know. So the McDonald's Corporation has instituted a new requirement that all U.S. locations have a mechanical warewasher by December 31st, 2025. So just be aware, if you have a McDonald's in your jurisdiction, they only have a 3-compartment sink, they're possibly putting, or most likely putting in a mechanical warewashing machine. So the McDonald's system is currently comprised about 50% of mechanical warewashings, while the remaining locations employ the manual warewashing only. So this initiative, again, may encompass both new installations where there are currently no machines, as well as upgrades to new models where they are already installed. There will be some exceptions allowed where spacing constraints are too prohibitive. Okay, so just be aware, you might see some new warewashing machines. I might reach out to Tracy just to see if I could get information on the types and models that they're going to be installing. Starbucks. All right, Starbucks, time is a public health control. So Starbucks is bringing back carafes for their milk and creamer items, and they are seeking statewide approval. They sought it, and we have issued that statewide approval, which was granted on January 27th of 2025. I want to remind you all, time as a public health control does not need prior approval. They were just doing this as a courtesy that we reviewed their procedures and that they were in line with the Wisconsin Food Code. You still need to go and check their procedures and verify they are following what has been provided. We get a lot of questions on blanket approvals, blanket variances, and we try to nudge away from that because a lot of locations differ from site to site. Facilities differ from site to site in how they operate. And we really want you, as the local inspector or our state field inspector, to know what's going on in your establishments, to go in and look and say, hey, yeah, I approve this. No, not so good. So we really don't want to get into the habit of the blanket approvals. This was a rare situation. This isn't per se approval. It's more of a, yeah, we agree with what you're doing. All right, so meat training for operators. It has been requested to develop training for our operators, specifically those in meat type establishments, to cover what is a risk-based inspection. So it's a 4-module type training, and it's geared for the meat inspector. However, it will be on our YouTube channel, and we will blast that out once they're done. We're in the process of recording them now. But they're meant for the meat inspector, and really what is a risk-based inspection and what it involves. Like I said, when it's complete, we will let you know. I also want to mention there is the training on our YouTube channel on the differences between a meat inspection and retail inspection. That's geared more for a retail inspector and meat inspector. If you have not viewed it or would like to take another look at it, by all means, feel free. I do have to mention, and I know I have Paul Humphrey on the line, the HRI exemption information in that PowerPoint might be slightly changed. As you all know, we did get a new HRI exemption policy, an updated one that went out. So keep that in mind. You are always follow the newest policies that the department provides, and therefore go to SharePoint to make sure you are using the newest policy. That training that was already done, that link can be found on SharePoint, and I am going to call out to one of my coworkers to also provide the link in chat. But if you go to the retail page, if you go down the left-hand side, you will see retail webinars. That's going to bring you to the landing page for our rec retail, all of our webinars that we've done in the past. And you will, if you scroll down, you will see that link that brings you out to the YouTube channel. All right. Cyclospora sampling 2024. So this was the first year we did this. So the goal of testing for 2024 was to sample raspberries and romaine lettuce from every county in the state of Wisconsin. The intent was to conduct a blind study for surveillance only, with no enforcement included at this time. The surveillance was requested by the FDA to help monitor throughout many states. So the sampling happened, which most of you know, over 6 weeks, starting in May, and 12 counties were sampled each week. The results were as followed. All 72 counties submitted the sample, so give yourself an applause, a pat on the back, great job. One county submitted 2 romaine samples. For lettuce samples, we received 73 samples. 3 were reported as no work done. It could have been something that happened with the shipping process. There were no positive samples. For the raspberry samples, 72 samples were received. 12 were reported as no work done. And as Lisa Lucht can attest, you have to package those puppies pretty good in order for you to not look like a murder scene inside of the cooler or the box that you sent it in, because they get smushed. There is juice everywhere. Again, 2 positive samples, which to me is always a little surprising. Work could not be completed for several reasons, as I mentioned. So it could have been packaging. They could have been shipped with a carrier that did not get the samples there in a timely manner, or compromised during transit. The staff, Mike and Lisa, field staff emails and calls and adjusted the process throughout those 6 weeks based on issues that were encountered. Again, the biggest problem that was encountered was the inability to protect the raspberries from smashing together during shipping. Mike and Lisa, is there anything else you would like to add? All
I
right.
would just add that we're working on getting the schedule together for this year, and we'll be doing another training either late April or early May.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so you will be sampling again. It was supposed to be a blind study, Deanna, so I don't think we know where the two positive samples came from. Sorry. And Mike or Lisa, if I'm incorrect, they will let me know.
No, you are correct,
You're correct.
Gary. And the only other thing I would say is that if you got an email a week ago, we sent out the first email and we want read receipts. We have over half of the people we haven't seen that it's been read or opened. So if you can go back and try to find that, we're just trying to stave off that we have a good contact for everyone before we start this year.
Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, you will be sampling again. I thought it was kind of fun. In 2023, we got to go out and be the test subject. So I thought it was fun to go into a store and buy some stuff and ship it off. So yeah. All right. So moving on to mushroom training. Again, classes are now underway. So check with the Wisconsin Mycological Society website for registration. I do believe Katie Matulis also made an announcement on SharePoint. Some of the trainings have already happened, but if you're interested, I've heard the class is really tough though. If you're interested, there are going to be trainings annually. Okay. Duties of the person in charge. If you haven't noticed a theme yet, the technical specialists are really starting to push duties of the person in charge, assessing duties of the person in charge.
Hello.
And Lisa, I think you need to mute. Okay. So assessing duties of the person in charge and how to do that. It seems overwhelming. I get that. When I went out last fall with Mike Nordos and he's like, all right, we're going to assess active managerial control duties of the person in charge. And I'm just like, oh gosh, no. Oh no, I feel like a firing squad already, but it's really not that complicated. So per the standardization manual, this item must be marked in or out of compliance based on the interaction and operation with the person in charge and food employee. The candidate needs to determine the systems or controls the person in charge has put into practice regarding oversight and or routine monitoring of the duties listed specifically in section 2-103.11. How do you accomplish this? You're going to accomplish this by discussion with the person in charge. You're going to verify it through observation that the system or controls are actually being implemented. And this concept, as I said, is commonly referred to as active managerial control. This item must be marked out of compliance when there is a pattern. Again, this is not a one-for-one with a risk factor violation. We are looking for a pattern of non-compliance and obvious failure of the person in charge to ensure employees are complying with the duties listed under section 2-103.11. Since marking this is out is a judgment call, it is important that this item not be marked for an isolated incident, but rather for an overall evaluation of the person in charge's ability to ensure compliance with the duties as described in 2-103.11. We don't allow for this to be marked not observed or not applicable. This seems like a lot. I completely understand this. I 100% was scared when I thought about it. And after having a discussion with Mike and with Katie Matulis, who had recently been standardized, I think we should probably be marking this, making that overall assessment more out than we actually are. Well, let's go through each of these. So again, there are multiple areas under 2-103.11 that you have to be thinking about when you're assessing duties of the person in charge. So the first one, pretty straightforward. Operations are not conducted in a private home or in a room used as a living or sleeping quarters as specified. under Chapter 6. Pretty straightforward. Nobody's making a bed on the bottom shelf, a stainless steel table, and there's toothbrush, toothpaste, whatnot at the hand wash sink. Pretty easy to assess. I haven't seen this in a long time. The next one, unnecessary individuals. So again, that person in charge understands that people are not allowed in the food preparation area, storage, or warewashing, except for brief visits and tours. Or if somebody that's coming in to service something, you want to make sure they understand that those folks are not to interfere or contaminate food, etc. So this could be a written policy. This could be a verbal policy. You could ask that question like, what do you do if somebody wants to come and see the kitchen? You're a high-end restaurant, and that's a lot of the times people will do like a tour of the kitchen. How do you handle that? What is your policy? It doesn't have to be written. It can be verbal. Oh, well, the policy is they don a hairnet, they wash their hands when they walk in, they stand off to the side, they don't impede staff. Okay, so how do you monitor that? If somebody's doing that, how are you making sure this is being done? Oh, well, we basically just train staff, and if we see issues, we have a discussion with the staff and we retrain them. There you go. Duties of the person in charge. Doesn't have to be written. What about compliance with code? Again, this talks about those delivery people and pesticide applicators, again, following those same kind of principles. Again, if it's a pest control operator, they're following code. If it's some service person, they're following code. Hand washing. Hand washing, this is one I usually like to talk a lot about when I'm assessing duties of the person in charge. So again, employees are effectively cleaning hands by routinely monitoring the employee's hand washing. So ask that person in charge, hey, do you have a policy for hand washing? Do you train staff on hand washing? Oh yeah, when they first come on, we talk about hand washing, when to wash hands, where to wash hands, how to wash hands. And then, if I see they're not washing hands properly, I'm monitoring it, we're having that discussion, and there might be some retraining involved. Again, doesn't have to be a written policy. Written policies are great, but verbals work sometimes just as well. E, so employees are visibly observing foods as they are received to determine if they are from approved sources, delivered at required temperatures, protected from contamination, unadulterated, accurately presented. Again, so employees are checking foods. So, do you have any deliveries coming in? No, we don't have any deliveries coming in this morning. Well, talk to me about who checks those deliveries as they come in. Do you have staff here monitoring deliveries? Oh, yeah. Do you have any records or logs where staff are maybe documenting temperatures of product? Are they taking temperatures of product? Yeah, they check to make sure food is frozen. Sometimes if the food is not cold to the touch, they might try to get like a surface temperature of that. And then what do they do if that food doesn't meet your standards when they receive it, or you are questioning an adulterated product? Oh, well, we have that adulterated product removed from sale. We put it in this area where all of our damaged, discarded products go. And then we contact the supplier, and they either come and get it or they tell us to take a picture and throw it away. All right, great. Hey, you got somebody checking it? You got somebody going through it? You have a system in place for how people are receiving stuff. They're checking it. So then if you're there and a delivery comes in and they just throw it in the walk-in cooler and it's not being checked, well, there's a kind of a disconnect in your process for your receiving. So then that gets the wheel spinning of, hey, staff aren't checking, they aren't following your procedures. What about receiving when not in operation? Again, how are foods handled if they're received and nobody's there? So this non-operating hours, are they placed in appropriate storage locations? Is there a policy? Do you have something in writing with those delivery staff? Are they protected from contamination? Again, staff come in, deliveries are dropped off, they check that delivery, make sure everything is A-okay, looking to make sure there weren't any issues with possible thawing and refreezing. What is that policy? How do you train? How do you monitor? How are you evaluating and retraining? Cooking and temperature and thermometer use. Another one that we usually have a lot of conversations. And I love that the inspectors are asking those questions about, well, what temperature would you cook this to? You could follow up with, do you have a policy? Are staff trained to check temperatures? If you're cooking a roast, how do you know that roast is done? Do you have a procedure in place? Are they documenting the temperatures? Or is it just kind of, yep, it's not getting there, so we have to keep cooking it? Are they calibrating thermometers? How is that being done as well? How often? And again, a lot of you folks out there are doing a fantastic job about asking thermometer calibration. I just want to mention, always make sure to check their thermometer as well. So again, it doesn't have to be this grand policy, written policy. It could just be this verbal policy. And then you notice that the cook is making some chicken, and if their policy is they check every chicken breast, and that cook is not checking the chicken breast, but you've checked it and it's managed to reach 165 degrees, that's a cooking temperature is in, but it's again a break in their procedures where the staff is not following even those verbal procedures that are set forth. Cooling is a big one. So cooling actually says they need to be cooling and monitoring cooling as it's going through the process. So be sure that you have that discussion with them. How are they monitoring cooling? Who's doing that? How often? What is the frequency? I can guarantee at least 90% of the time, nobody is monitoring cooling. But again, when we're assessing active managerial control, we're looking at an overall compliance with this section. So again, they should know the cooling parameters and they should be monitoring as it's going through the cooling process. So like I said, if you ask, I love that people are honest and they're just going to say, yeah, we're just not doing it. We're not monitoring. And you really know they're not monitoring when they don't even know where their thermometer is. All right, holding. Again, we want to make sure that staff are checking holding temperatures and not just hot holding, but cold holding, either by checking equipment ambient temperatures. I always encourage some internal food temperatures if they have some concerns, as well as hot holding. We talk a lot about, and this probably falls more into the cooking, but like reheating for hot holding. How are you making sure that you're getting to that temperature within X amount of time? Do you have a procedure in place? Are staff checking temperatures? No. Well, we've done the study. We're kind of like what we do with our schools. Well, we've done the study where we know it's going to get to this temperature at this amount of time. I also want to mention that just because hot holding is in doesn't mean that reheating is in. But again, asking those questions. What is your procedure? How do staff know that you're properly holding, cold holding or hot holding? Consumer advisory. And you will also notice there is a new fact sheet, and we will talk about the fact sheets, but the fact sheet has been updated for consumer advisory. So it was brought to our attention that they need to understand, the consumer needs to understand that if a product is cooked to order, then that could cause illness. There is the new handout. Like I said, I will talk about that. But again, when we're assessing active managerial control, we want to make sure that they know that consumers who order raw or partially cooked ready-to-eat foods of animal origin are informed as specified under section 3-601.11, and the food is not cooked sufficiently to ensure its safety. So again, that they understand what the consumer advisory is. Cleaning and sanitizing, again, making sure employees are properly sanitizing cleaned multi-use equipment and utensils before they are reused through routine monitoring of solution, temperature, and exposure, or time for hot water sanitizing, chemical concentration, pH, temperature, exposure time, etc. So again, what is your policy? How many of us have seen those outdated test strips back that from 2022 was their expiration date, which tells me they probably don't have any policy in place for checking proper concentration of sanitizer. So I would start asking, well, how often do you check? What is your policy? What is your procedure? Oh, we don't have a policy. So again, we don't have active managerial control. Clean tableware. Again, basically consumers are notified that tableware is to be used. So again, if we have a staff person that is letting people use the same dirty dish, I'd kind of be like, there's a miscommunication here. Contamination with hands. Again, if they're contaminating product with hands, bare hand contact. What is policy for avoiding contamination? When do you use gloves? When do you change gloves? You notice staff aren't doing that. So again, lack of active managerial control. And finally, allergen awareness. So we want to make sure that there is some knowledge, some active managerial control for allergen awareness. So maybe just asking, do you know what foods are now the 9 major allergens? A lot of times you're going to see things posted. Do staff understand? And you can ask a staff member what to do in the case of an allergic reaction. So again, making sure there's some allergen awareness. I do want to add that the FDA food code now includes a Q. So written procedures and plans were specified by this code and as developed by the food establishment are maintained and implemented as required. And you're probably wondering, where is P? Well, P falls under employee illness reporting. So that was a lot on duties of the person in charge. I know Mike Nordhaus did a WeHa Wednesday webinar on duties of the person in charge. So that is recorded on our WeHa YouTube channel. I believe you can find that link on the WeHa website. So again, if you go to weha.net and you should be able to click on webinars, you can find a link for it. He did a fantastic job. He also talked about it at WeHa last fall in the Dells. So we're really just trying to get you folks and to start asking those questions on assessing active managerial control, which is duties of the person in charge. All right. So.
Hey, Carrie, there's a question in chat.
Oh.
Where someone asked, can you provide an example when you would mark cooling out, but not duties of the person in charge? And there's also a second question after that.
Okay. Let me pull up the chat here so I can see it. All right. Can you mark cooling out, but not the duties of the person in charge? It could be. Great question, Trista. And actually, Mike used this as an example when I was in the field. It could be a situation where they're monitoring the cooling, but they might not be reaching that the first 2 hours, the 135 to 70, but they're monitoring it and they're not taking any corrective action with it. So cooling could be out, but they're actually following their procedure and monitoring cooling. Are we marking out if 2 of these are out, or where are we drawing the line? Professional judgment is what I'm going to tell you. Professional judgment. If it's chaos back in that kitchen, I'm going to guess that there is no active managerial control, and you're going to mark duties of the person in charge as out. You're going to have to use professional judgment, just like if that person in charge cannot demonstrate knowledge and is not a certified food protection manager, you're going to have to use professional judgment. Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it half of them that's going to be on you. That's my take on it. You could have it as an internal policy, but I will also tell you, if you're going to mark this as out, you need to make sure that you are addressing that entire section in order to mark it as out. So when we're looking at that, you have to assess all of duties of the person in charge. Did that answer the questions? I'm hearing nothing. Thanks, Shannon. Hi, question.
Hi, Carrie, I was just wondering, say if when we walk into an inspection, the person in charge doesn't know what's going on, definitely doesn't have active managerial control, but halfway through it, say the owner actually come back, and then she demonstrates good knowledge. I'm thinking of an actual example I have. Do we mark that out or in because the kind of person in charge changed, but I still didn't feel comfortable that when the owner's not there, what's going on at the place?
So you walk in, Kai, here's what I'm going to say. You walk in and the first thing you're going to ask, are you the person in charge? Are you the one who's overseeing what's happening back in the kitchen? Yep, I'm the person in charge right now. That is your person in charge. And if they are not the certified food protection manager, then they are going to have to demonstrate that knowledge. Just because the owner walks in halfway through the inspection doesn't mean that they're now off the hook because the owner wasn't there during the first half inspection. I'm guessing what happened is that manager or somebody called that manager or owner and said, yeah, you better get here. Things are going south pretty quickly. But again, this is what active managerial control is to make sure these systems are in place with staff so that they know, they understand checking temperatures, washing hands, people unnecessary to the establishment. So again, that person that has identified themselves as the person in charge, and the next question I ask, are you also a certified food protection manager? Well, no, I'm not. And that immediately sends up a flag in my head that they are not the certified food protection manager. They have identified themselves as the person in charge. They are the person who I'm going to indicate on the report as the person in charge. And they are going to be the one who's going to sign the report and that you're going to give the report to after you've completed the inspection. So yeah, Deanna, Health Space has each of A through A as separate violations. We're trying to work through that. So we're trying to work through that. So again, if they're designating themselves as a person in charge, they have to be able to demonstrate knowledge. There is no way for us to kind of document each one of those separate areas in Health Space. So we've been telling people to just write out one and indicate under that each of the areas in that section that they're not able to, they don't have active managerial control. Does that answer the question? I know it's a kind of, we're trying to figure out a way to capture where people are lacking in active managerial control, but not debiting them an additional 6 violations. Okay. Yeah. Karen, no, and then again, so no one's the person in charge, so you're going to probably mark that as out. Okay. So what should you do? You want to ask how staff are trained. Are you monitoring the staff during situations? And is there a verification of active managerial control in the establishment? As I said, an example, you notice a line cook heating soup on the stove. They indicate the soup is being warmed up for service on the steam table over the lunch period. You should ask that person in charge if they have any policies on cooking or reheating foods. This does not need to be written, as I've stated several times. They indicate they do have a policy that the staff are to take the temperature prior to the reheat process to be sure it is maintained under temperature control. So either from frozen or frozen or 41 or below. If the product has been maintained at safe temperature, they begin the process where the soup is heated in small batches on the stovetop. They check the clock. However, this almost always happens at 10 a.m. before lunch begins at 11. They ensure the soup reaches 165 before it is transferred to the steam table, where it is held at 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Staff are to check the steam table items throughout the service, or at least after the lunch rush, to ensure it is holding, not to go past 2 hours. If it doesn't maintain temperatures, the soup will be discarded, and it is discarded after the lunch period. So during the inspection, staff are monitoring temperatures with their food thermometer and indicate appropriate times and temperatures. The person in charge also periodically monitors and verifies staff are following their policy on reheating and hot holding. So if they notice a cook does not follow the process, they are retrained through demonstration and discussion. This is a great example of duties of the person in charge. Not only that, but you're getting a lot more information on those complex food systems that they have going on in their establishment. I want to mention what you should not do. This is not a one-for-one situation. Duties is different. This involves discussion on active managerial control. They may be meeting reheating requirements, but do not have that process in place. So again, going back to Trista's question, could it be that they are in, but duties is out and vice versa? Remember, again, we want you to conduct an overall assessment of duties of the person in charge. We are trying to figure out how to capture, as I said, the information without having multiple violations under the section. So all of you are getting ahead of me a little bit, but I love it. I love that you're all thinking. So I want to say, this is something we're coming out of the gates with in 2025, one of those new things that we really want you to start assessing. All right, so while conducting an inspection, you ask about any policies for cooling. They do not have any, but do have a blast chiller, it's supposed to be chiller, that they are routinely using. Staff do not monitor the cooling process. You are able to monitor and follow cooling of chicken tenders, and it meets the cooling parameters. Would this meet duties of the person in charge under cooling? Yes or no? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Do we have a thumbs down?
I don't think so.
No, it's not Zoom. Thumbs up doesn't. Mark Larson has his hand up. Some people are probably raising their hands.
Sorry, I didn't mean to click that.
That's okay. We all get excited. All right. We could use the wow face for no. Love that, Sarah. Thank you. I am going to say no. This does not meet the duties of the person in charge. They are not monitoring. So again, where would this be in the code? Thinking back to that prior slide, we know it's going to be in 2-103.11, I believe. H. Okay. Any questions on that? You're meeting cooling, but they're not.
Well, what happens if they monitored it once, the person in charge did, and it was clearly going to meet the parameters, and then knew that based off of how many tenders they were cooking, and then just had their staff do it?
Well, the staff are actually, this is built for the staff to do the monitoring, Alex.
Okay. I just wanted to double check.
This doesn't all have to be done by the person in charge. This is really procedures for staff. So staff are monitoring and they're not required to document. They're just required to monitor. Okay. All right. Moving on to SharePoint training. Again, we push the SharePoint training. I love hearing from you individually, but we're really trying to focus on, again, collection of data and a more streamlined process for training. When you sign up for training, you'll see I put dates on there and I usually leave them open. It's whatever you want to do. Some of us will put like specific, like one-on-one training, or you may see class opportunity type training. So be on the lookout. We can customize any training that you want to do. FYI, I love doing the basic HACCP training and I love doing the advanced HACCP training because you do all the work for me. So if any of you are interested, I'm actually doing one coming up this spring with Katie. We can do this training online, in person, or on site at an establishment. As I said, we really want to encourage you to use SharePoint. And then we do go in and check it. However, sometimes we miss it. There's a lot of us, there's 9 of us on there that are offering trainings. Please email the person that you are signing up for the training with. We've asked for there to be a mechanism in place that if you sign up for a training with one of us, we get notified. It's just not possible with SharePoint. So when you sign up for that training, either email the person, send a calendar invite, something, message us, whatever, so we know that you've signed up for one of those days. If you need help or if you want a specific training and you don't see days on the calendar, reach out to the retail mailbox. I'm going to have one of my coworkers put the mailbox address in chat as well, so you have that for those of you who don't know. We also have a rec mailbox and we have a licensing mailbox. And it's okay if you send it to one of the mailboxes and you're not quite sure where it goes. We will get it to the appropriate people. Trista, hand up.
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So to assess person in charge duties, if you have a restaurant where the person in charge has zero control over what's going on, is not very knowledgeable, but the only actual violations you observe beyond that is a very, very dirty, disgusting kitchen and date marking that is completely out of control. How do you mark that?
For duties?
Yeah.
Again, you're going to have to assess using section 2-103.11. Do they have policies and procedures in place for those specific things like cooling, hot holding, reheating, hand washing, receiving, thawing? I think I accidentally skipped thawing. They have to have procedures in place for those. You have to ask those questions. So again, like I said, it's not a 1-for-1 of a risk factor violation. It's, do they have procedures? Are they following their procedures? It could even be a 1-person show and that they can tell you their procedures, that they monitor temperatures after it's done cooking and you notice they're monitoring temperatures. Great. So again, I want to remind you, it's not a 1-for-1 with violations in the report.
Thank you. That's helpful.
You're welcome, Trista. All right. Okay. So again, if any of you would like to sign up for some training and go out and maybe watch one of us assess active managerial control, check out the SharePoint registration training calendar. I put in plugs for stuff all the time. All right, during standardization, are you looking for us to hit every single one of these, or is that we hit most of them? Deanna, I think if you get through 3 or 4 of them and you're like, there are no policies, or if they indicate they have 0 policies for any of these things, you kind of covered it. I was in situations, again, when I was being standardized, where there was obviously no oversight or active managerial control at all. They weren't taking temperatures. They weren't monitoring foods in the cooling process. Cold holding was all over the place. Hand washing, there was no policy for hand washing. So yeah. If it's a really good place, again, it's a judgment. It's going to be a judgment, Deanna. I know that's the gray political answer, but judgment. All right. So changes to the retail policy team. You notice a name change, and I believe some of you might be on the call who are part of this now work group. The department was informed that because of statute requirements, the group can no longer operate as a retail policy team. So it's a work group now. Or they have to be an official council, which we're going to talk a little bit about one of our groups that did become an official council. So going forward, there will be some changes with the process. Now they're now operating as a work group. The biggest change, I guess we won't have agent members. This was Katie who provided the information. Will no longer be attending the monthly work group meetings. The agent members will be sent the document policy guidance once the document has been finalized by review to the work group for review and comment. The work group has been tasked to review all the retail documents located in the retail program manual on SharePoint, compare them to the code, and see if there are any needed changes, updates, or revisions. Again, I can't stress enough. Any policies need to come from SharePoint. Any policy that you may even have from DHS days, you need to throw it away, put it in your recycle bin. It's no longer applicable. Any policy that you have to follow is going to be on SharePoint. Katie, I think we might have Helen on the call. Anything else you want to add with the retail policy work group?
I don't think so. The main thing is just, yeah, the agents are no longer attending the meetings, but they will still get a copy of the revised document to be able to put in feedback or input before it goes official.
All right. Jim has his hand up too. Jim. Jim is scrambling to unmute. Jim, if you're speaking.
Sorry. Yep, here we go. Yeah, basically the only thing that's changed is everything functions the same way, but we had to make some changes to how the policy team operated. If we were to have, because of how the committee was operating, it was considered a council, and it was not the department's idea to create another council for a policy team. So we had to convert this to a work group. And what that work group means is that all that work has to be done by DATCAP employees, but we still wanted to make sure that our agent partners were part of the process. So after the work group develops a policy, we will reach out to those agent members and send it to them for review, comment, and suggestions. Then it comes back to the work group. The work group makes the final changes and it goes through the approval process. So it's still, in theory, going to operate the same. Our partners still have an opportunity to provide comment and feedback. It's just in the structure of how we have to function as a work group and still meet statutory requirements.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it's been a hot minute that I was involved with it, so I know some changes had occurred. All right, Equipment Committee. Per Mark Jenko, just a reminder, if there is a readily available commercial piece of equipment, a request will not be accepted. Mark, can you give us some examples?
Oh, yeah, so we have plenty of examples. So in regards to different type of units, there's a lot of Vivo units that are coming from overseas. In regards to hamburger units, they're like basically your George Foreman's. We will not accept these type of units. So basically, we do want to make sure that if it says even in the manual that if it is for residential or home use only, we will not review them type of units, okay?
All right, save our Fearless Equipment Committee some time. There have been some submissions and approvals. So there were 53 reviews. It just always blows my mind when I think of all the stuff we review as a group. 14 of those were approved. So we had some freeze dryers and some vacuum sealers. Yep, so if you have questions, you can email the retail mailbox or Mark Jenko directly. Okay. So here we have equipment submission issues most common. So lack of supporting information from operators as to unit construction, no manuals, only provide ads or pictures. And finally, committee is not required to do research on equipment submitted. You have to make sure that operator does their homework. Most submission units are from overseas, as Mark said, so poor materials and construction. I would say we'd also want those in English. and residential equipment not received and is noted within the manual as ANSI equipment is readily available. So again, just keep that in mind if you have somebody that's wanting to submit a residential stove or refrigerator or some sort of grilling apparatus. There is the equipment committee brochure that does go through those pieces of equipment that we do allow, like blenders, toasters, microwaves. So keep that in mind as well. All right, handout committee. So again, handout committee has been busy in 2024. There were 10 fact sheets that were created and or updated. So a majority of these fact sheets are now available in Spanish. The highlight for fact sheets would probably be the creation of 5 individual emergency response fact sheets for water supply, fire, flood, power, and raw sewage. Again, I'm going to ask one of my coworkers to drop the link. You can see it in the slide, but we're going to drop that link in the chat as well. So it's going to bring you right out to our public-facing website where you can find these handouts. A handout committee does a lot of great work. They are already full steam ahead for 2025 as well. I know Kara has touchy internet connectivity. So if you have any questions on the handouts, go out to the website, take a look. We always take suggestions for handouts as well as updates of handouts too. All right, thanks, Katie. The Food Safety Advisory Council. So the committee has gone to a council. So most membership will remain the same, but additional seats will be added. I know I have Sarah on the call. She has taken over the role as the facilitator / I think she is the secretary, but she's also a voting member. If you're interested in seeing what the group has been up to, feel free to check out the DATCAP website. Again, it is on the web page. I'm going to ask one of you, to share that link as well. There's minutes, who's on the council, the contact information for the council, and who is representing the constituencies. Sarah, anything else you want to add? She's doing a fantastic job, by the way. This was a heavy lift.
Nothing to add. I think you got it all.
All right. So it's pretty exciting news that we are actually a council. Okay. Next up, I just wanted to share information from 2023. I know you saw this last year, but we had in 2023, 351 submissions. So again, lots of variances and HACCP plans that we're looking at. 2024, we are right on track. We are a little less. So we had 342 submissions. 126 of those were some form of reduced oxygen packaging, whether it required a variance or not, or whether if it had that variance or it didn't, it was a HACCP plan only under 3-50212. We looked at 126 of them, and this encompassed sous vide, cook chill, frozen fish, also raw meat, cheese. So just hats off. You guys are really recognizing what our special processes out there. You are working with your operators and you're getting things submitted. We had 60 variance requests for mobile units. Those included service base, tanks, operation, boundary of a mobile. 33 for curing. This included curing of fish. Also, reduced oxygen packaging. Sometimes we will see a curing plan that is submitted that includes reduced oxygen packaging. People will combine that plan. That's fine, just as long as they're addressing the hazards of concern. 16 sink variances, so hand sinks and service sinks. We had 28 custom processing variance submissions that we reviewed. 29 acidified rice variances, and I know that's probably due to there's been some change of ownerships in a lot of our franchises. Again, we're doing those individual reviews. And then there's the others. So we have evisceration, fermentation, bathrooms, cold holding, freeze drying, cold brew, certified food protection manager, and micro markets. Again, hats off to all of you. Great job in recognizing special processes and getting these submitted. This is all you. This is all you. The Conference for Food Protection is coming up. Foodprotect.org. The issues are now online. You can look at the issues. Wisconsin did submit 6 issues. So those were jewelry, being able to wear like a health monitoring device on your wrist, as long as it is clean, smooth, cleanable, can be sanitized. Manufacturers cooking. I think we skipped that one, Katie and Mike. Did we skip that? No, we included that one. It hasn't hit Wisconsin yet, but the manufacturer's cooking directions is just, I just don't know how we're going to be able to even do it, to monitor it, to make sure they're meeting manufacturer's cooking directions. Everyone has spoken. We have listened. We get a lot of questions on smoked fish storage. If it's labeled to store at 38 degrees Fahrenheit or below, we submitted an issue that if it's labeled to be stored at 38, it should be stored at 38. And it should be addressed and codified in the food code. We also wanted some update for the definition of plant food in Annex 3 to actually include things like mushrooms, grains, and rice. We want the food code to come in line with FSIS come-up times. So come-up times address the time that it sits from, I believe, 50 or 80 to 130. We don't want come-up times taking longer than 6 hours is what it boils down to, because then you're running the risk of staph. And finally, Table A and Annex for clarification of packaging. So how many of you knew that you can apply Table A, but it has to be packaged above 135 degrees Fahrenheit? How many of you knew that? Raise your hand. Thumbs up. I'm not seeing a lot of thumbs up. Sherry's got her hand up. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Josh, I will repeat that. In order to apply Table A to apply TCS, non-TCS using pH and or water activity, that packaging needs to occur at 135 degrees Fahrenheit or above. So that is why in almost all situations, unless they're doing cook chill, you will apply Table B under the definition of TCS. Yeah, Sherry. Yep. Yeah. So Katie drafted a submission and we are going to CFP with it, and it has landed at Council 3. So again, if you want to see, Josh, did I answer your question? Is that who has his hand up? Oh, Janice. Yeah. She might have just been answering that she knew that. Okay. Janice, unless you have a question. Yeah, so we are very thoughtful when we submit issues to the Conference for Food Protection on behalf of the state of Wisconsin. So this is what we came up with. Like I said, foodprotect.org. You can see the website on the slide. The issues are up between Council 1, 2, and 3. Our issues either landed in Council 1 or Council 3. I have a pile of program standard committee issues that are in Council 2. Okay, what are come-up times? So Deanna, come-up times is the time basically that food is sitting in the danger zone. So FSIS Appendix A talks about come-up times and not sitting in that time for a long period of time. Katie can probably describe this better than me.
Oh, well, I wasn't going to describe come up times, but I was going to give another plug for WeHa just to let everyone know that after CFP, I am going to do a webinar, a WeHa webinar on CFP and kind of how the whole entire conference played out and just the whole process of leading up to the conference. So that will be announced and coming out in April.
Awesome. And I want to add that you don't have to be a WeHa member to attend the webinars. So there's a lot of you on here. You do not need to be a member. So check the WeHa website. I might even tell Katie to put an announcement on SharePoint once we have that information. We love CFP. We are food geeks. All right. Okay. Everyone's favorite session, standardization 2024 data. We did update the standardization manual. I'm going to have one of my coworkers. I don't know if we can, I don't think we can attach a file, can we? Yeah, we can attach a file. So I'm going to ask one of my coworkers to attach the new 2025 manual. I am also going to cover the changes that are in the manual as well. But in case you want to follow along, always pull off the newest manual. We have gotten into the habit of reviewing that manual every year. Thanks to Katie. Okay, so 2024. So there was data from a total of 168 exercises. Woo, that's a lot of exercises. So looking at what we found, 20B, of course, seems to be the frequent flyer every year. It pops up every year. Food cooled from ambient and or pre-chilled ingredients. So again, this was total disagreements, including those misses or swings. We had 15 disagreements out of 168 exercises. That's not really too horribly bad. It's less than 10%. We have 18E, poultry, balut, stuffed foods, or stuffing containing fish, meat, poultry, or ratites with a total of 14. And 18J, 13 disagreements for non-continuous cooking. We also had 40, the report number 40 for personal cleanliness, so thinking of hair restraints, jewelry, stuff like that. We had a total of 13 disagreements. And then 18A, raw eggs cooked for immediate service. There were 12. And 37, food properly labeled, original container. We had 12 total disagreements. So what should I do? During standardization, you see individuals cutting tomatoes. What should you do? What would you do? I'm going to pick on somebody here. Kai, what would you do? Because I know Kai's one of our standards.
I would see if they are wearing gloves and if they're date marking the tomatoes.
Okay. I would ask maybe where they're stored. Pre-washing, ask if they chill them after preparation. All right. So yeah, I'm going to start asking some questions about those tomatoes. I would also want to know, again, if they're above 41, what's going on with them. So I think a lot of you are catching this. Yeah. So when you think of this, if they're above that 41 degrees, if they've prepped them, where on the standardization report would this be documented? How would you document this? Will they be cooled? Think about that number one, cooled from ambient. Yes, Alex. Ambient cooling. Yeah. So 20B, foods cooled from ambient and or pre-chilled ingredients. I'm also going to tell you something that Mike Nordos told me. Temperatures can rise during the processing or whatever they have going on. But anytime a food is above 41, what are they going to have to do with that food? They're going to have to cool it down. So making sure that they're properly cooling it. if it's made from ambient and or pre-chilled ingredients. Okay. Next up. So we have here situation. Does the food code require a cleanup kit? Thumbs up for yes. Wowza face for no. I see lots of wowza faces. No, the food code doesn't require a cleanup kit. Although it's highly recommended, it really just requires they have procedures in place. And I would ask to probably see those procedures and make sure they have the stuff following the procedures. So keep in mind, food code does not require a cleanup kit. All right. So now focusing just on the swings or the misses. So here you can see, again, those 9 times or 9 opportunities to monitor or to ask those questions about foods cooled from ambient temperatures. So again, keep in mind, ask those questions. It's not just a tuna salad. It's something like cut tomatoes or cut lettuce or anything that they might be prepping, those deli sandwiches that I always like to pick on. The next one, cleanup procedures. Again, opportunities were missed when questions weren't asked. 18J, again, folks just, it's new. So I get it, it's new. Like the cleanup procedures and the non-continuous cook is new. So again, 8 times there was a missed opportunity. Time is a public health control. A lot of times just not asking, like, do you use time instead of temperature? Would you hold foods at room temperature for a certain amount of time and then throw that food away? Do you have a policy for that? So just because they have indicated that they're going to do it doesn't mean that they're going to meet the code as well. They have to have those procedures in place. And finally, 44 had 8 missed opportunities for utensils, equipment, linen storage, dried and handled. All right, so Wing Wednesday. During a standardization exercise, you find out the restaurant does a big Wing Wednesday event and preps their wings in advance. They indicate that they only flash fry them to save time. They do a lot of wings. Is this in? Is this out? Again, thumbs up for in. Wowza face for out. How would you mark this? See some wowza faces. I don't know if that's what it actually is, but that's what I'm going to call it. You need more information. I like that, Jenna. I had here, I would probably mark it out based on what they're telling me, but I would probably ask them. So maybe need some more information. However, if it's standardization, I'm going to probably mark this as out. They've indicated they're basically flash frying them just to crisp them up a little bit to speed up the process. I don't know how this speeds up the process, but apparently it speeds up the process. If they don't want to have those procedures for non-continuous cooking, they're going to have to demonstrate to you that they're actually reaching that initial cook temperature of 165. Yeah, great questions, Eddie. Are they pre-cooked? They're raw. They're raw. They're raw wings. Be on the lookout for Wing Wednesday. They do have written procedures for non-continuous cooks, Sarah. That's why I would mark it as out. All right. So 2 procedures need to be prepared in advance if a place wants to use time as a public health control. Thumbs up for yes. Wowza face for no. I love the thumbs up. Kai, down there, they must be like, yeah. Yes. That's okay. So again, we're going to have direct observation, record reviewing, etc. So the code actually says that they have to have procedures prepared in advance on site for you, the regulatory authority, to review. So that, like I said, when with Starbucks, that is not something that needs to be approved in advance, but they need to have that in advance. It's to the honor or the operator's benefit to actually have these run through you first, just to be sure they're meeting the intent of the code. Okay, I know there's some of you veterans out there, and hats off to all of you, but we have some new folks too that are going to be going through standardization. So I always like to go through expectations of the standardization process. When we look at standardization, I would hesitate. I know we allow for inspections to be conducted after standardization. If you're having trouble keeping that separate or with time, it might be to your benefit to just say, you know what, this is going to be a standardization only, because as a standard, I'm not going to hang around for an hour and watch you type up a report. I'm going to make you go on to the next establishment anyway. So just keep that in mind. I would really recommend that you don't do this as a routine inspection, that your full attention is on standardization. So scheduling. When scheduling your facilities, be sure they are appropriate. What I mean by that they're doing something while we're there, some sort of processing, they're cooking, they're cooling, they're receiving, reheating, something. If I walk in as a standard with a candidate and nothing's happening, I'm probably going to say, all right, we're going to go up the road to someplace else. And then we might surprise the operator, because a lot of times they kind of know we're coming. So keep that in mind. We want complex facilities in nature. As much as I love a good sub shop, don't really want to see these as part of standardization. As much as I love a good ice cream shop or something like that, we don't want to see these as standardization. You're showing us what you know how to do. So when you're scheduling those, just be aware of that, and be aware that you may need to have multiple establishments in place. Also, when you're scheduling overall, our calendars book up quickly. So a lot of times, if you need to cancel a standardization exercise, it's going to be a while before you get back on the calendar. And I know a lot of you are super busy in the summer, but it might just be, hey, now we got to go out in July. So just be cognizant of that as well. Sometimes we are coming from a little bit of a distance away, so there's those situations as well of hotel rooms and things like that. So, just kind of be thinking of that when you're scheduling, and when you're scheduling, making sure you have those appropriate facilities as well. Equipment. I'm seeing everybody's really coming prepared with equipment. I don't really have any concerns with equipment. I do want to say, if you carry a clipboard, please make sure that clipboard doesn't act as a source of contamination by putting it on cutting boards, things like that. And be prepared to take a lot of temperatures. When I go up for standardization for 6 exercises, I literally burn through 2 boxes of alcohol prep pads. We will not allow you to use an infrared only for standardization. We want internal food temperatures. If it's large pans, we want multiple temperatures taken in that large pan of food. Temperatures differ very greatly from the sides versus the center. So keep that in mind. Any individually controlled unit needs to have a separate temperature as well. You are also going to want to set the example. Hair restraints, hand washing. It's not required. I just have this sneaking suspicion that there's going to come a day and time when some of our franchises are not going to allow us into establishments without adequate footwear, meaning slip resistant type shoes or sturdy, stable shoes. And also just making sure that, like I said, equipment doesn't serve as a source of cross-contamination. When you're doing your standardization, thinking back to that risk-based inspection training, we want you to conduct that quick 5-minute, however long it takes you walk through the first thing when you enter that kitchen. Remember that standardization is mostly about marking what you see. During your walkthrough, you should be taking notes and assessing risk. Conduct the walkthrough through the entire facility, including the walk-in cooler, and focus when you start that standardization inspection on those dynamic situations versus those static. Again, if you've taken the risk-based inspection training, you know we talk about dynamic versus static. Don't make assumptions on what may or may not be happening in the facility. Even if it's a facility that you've inspected before, you must not make assumptions they are not doing a certain process or providing a certain food. This can result in a missed situation or a missed opportunity. All right. I always tell people, pretend like you don't know what the heck is going on. Even if you've been in XYZ place for the last 10 years, you need to pretend like, I know it's hard, pretend like you don't know what's going on. And remember that establishment also has a job to do. I always chuckle when people apologize to me because they think they're in my way. I always tell people, I am in your way. Please, if I am in your way, ask me to move. I will not get my feelings hurt. Try not to interrupt their flow, but you want to assess what they have going on. So don't tell them to cook something. If they're going to cook something, or if they're kind of in a lull, ask if they're going to cook something to let you know, because you would like to take a temperature of it. Don't take temperatures during the cooking process. As I said, don't ask them to cook anything for you. We get that all the time. Oh, well, we'll cook that for you. No. Nope. Please don't ask for somebody to cook something for you, even if they're offering. Again, try not to get them to change their routine or their behavior. Lots of temperatures, lots of questions. It feels like sometimes we're the firing squad with the questions. And lots of temperatures. Be prepared to take lots of temperatures. Like I said, if it's a large pan, multiple temperatures throughout that large pan in each individually controlled unit. We're going to use a lot of alcohol prep pads. You should be doing this during every inspection. So, how many years do you need to conduct standardization maintenance exercises or re-standardization? How many years do you have to conduct your maintenance exercises? 3. I'm seeing 3s. Yeah, every 3 years. This is for a standard. 6 exercises must be conducted for the standard. A little different for the people that aren't standardizing someone else, but they only have to do 4 exercises. But again, we want every 3 years. Okay. So what's new with standardization? All right, for maintenance standardization, the standard and the candidate are going to conduct 6 joint field exercises of food establishments. So you're going to select them, you're going to send them to the standard for approval. As I said, we suggest having backup exercise or facilities. So when we're talking about those establishments, and again, if you're re-standardizing over maintenance, you're going to pick 2 each year, and we're going to make sure that you're not overlapping on the facility requirements. So we want to make sure they're categorized as risk 2, 3, or 4, or basically moderate or complex in nature. So I also want to mention, and we usually don't even go to, like, we are only going to allow 1 risk category 2 facility, but again, just make sure it's a moderate or complex. We want to be sure, as I said, that there's cooking, cooling, hot holding, reheating, and complex food in nature. So there has been a change. When you're choosing So you could do a grocery store with retail processing, choice of deli and or meat and produce. So again, you're going to see that language updated in the standardization manual. You're also going to need a full service restaurant or a facility that serves a highly susceptible population. Examples of a nursing home or a hospital. I've allowed people to do establishments that do like the senior meals, their senior meal site for lunch, things like that. Highly susceptible population. Questions? So if you want to go to a grocery store and do the entire grocery store, we will still count that as 2. Or if you want to just do the deli and you want to do something else instead because you're having a hard time finding grocery stores, we'll allow that as well. No subways. Kyle. Kyle has his hand up.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Quick question. So, like, just wondering for the flow of one of these exercises when a standard whether it's you from the state or our county standard goes out with a non-standard inspector, is it normal, or I guess like what's the expectation while you're inspecting, say, questioning the person in charge, for example, on something? Say you ask the wrong thing or make a mistake during your field exercise with the standard. Is it normally, are mistakes normally discussed like at that time you make the mistake, or all after when you're done and you're just going through your form, kind of seeing where the standard said you messed up, or like when is that stuff discussed?
Usually when you're going through the form.
Okay. Not
Yep.
not in real time, because I just feel like if it's talked about while you're in discussion with the person in charge or one of the staff, it can kind of throw your mind for a loop, and you're just not able to have a good flow of things.
Yeah, correct. It should be done after.
Okay,
I'm going to tell
cool.
you, Kyle, anybody who's been in the field with me knows I sometimes have a hard time keeping my mouth shut. So.
Well, no, like I guess like small things. I know I've been out with you and I never had a concern, but I just know that hearing from some other staff, it can like kind of confuse them.
It sets and and as for someone who's been the candidate, it kind of throws you off. So
Exactly.
I tried really hard to be quiet. We tried really hard to be quiet, but sometimes I completely understand because I've been on the receiving end of it as well. So it's practice to wait until after the exercise is complete and you're going through the report to have that discussion of that, maybe that disagreement or how to improve on something when you're evaluating the person in charge or demonstration of knowledge or whatever.
Sure.
It's done after. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Good question. All right. So something else, some of you are probably going to be really happy about, all of you OGs out there. Homework for maintenance, process flows and hazard analysis is no longer required. So now we're just requiring a risk control plan and a HACCP verification. And if you're doing that HACCP verification, usually that exercise, one of your maintenance exercises coincides with that HACCP verification. So report marking, what's new with standardization report marking? So the person in charge, present, demonstration of knowledge, and performs duties. So again, under C, as I had mentioned, you're going to assess 2-103.11 A through N and P. As I had mentioned earlier, O is going to be under employee illness, which you see under number 3, management, food employees, and conditional knowledge responsibilities and reporting. That's where you're going to see that 2-103.11 O. So just remember that. All right. Just a quick review of facility requirements. So for those of you that are in the process of getting ready for initial standardization, you're going to have to do 8 total. So again, grocery store with food service deli and meat produce department, moderate complex restaurant, highly susceptible population. I usually add in there a HACCP establishment as well, because you're going to have to do that verification. And why would you not just do an inspection there at the same time? So we have HACCP verification worksheet and summary. For homework, process 1, 2, and 3 flowcharts with hazard analysis. Again, as you're going through these 8 exercises, you will decide with your standard the process 1, 2, 3, or your standard's going to say, hey, that's a good one to do a flow and hazard analysis on. A risk control plan. Again, as you're going through the 8 exercises, you're going to come across some risk factors out of control. And your standard is going to say, this is a good opportunity for you to develop a risk control plan. Doesn't have to be enacted in the establishment, but it is something that you need to develop. And we want code citations for all the agreed upon or the outs that were marked. So if you, again, had something marked as in, but your standard had it marked as out, we still want that code citation for it. So you should be trying to jot those down when you're doing that report. I, again, would say for initial standardization, trying to also do inspection reports, not a good idea. This is overwhelming enough, trust me. All right, so now, again, facility requirements for maintenance. Grocery store with retail processing, so you now get to choose either the deli and or meat and produce. So think about that. You don't have to do both. Moderate complex restaurants and highly susceptible population. The homework, again, we've taken out the process flow and hazard analysis. You're going to need that HACCP verification worksheet and summary, risk control plan, and code citations. Okay, so if you are not one of the lucky ones who's already in the process of having your evaluation, we are scheduling them. The agent evaluation page, you should be able to see your county or city information. I do want to mention there is a new MOA, which went out in, I believe, December. And Jim, what date do you want that new MOA back?
It needed to be back to me 6 days ago.
There you go. So if you haven't gotten them back to Jim, you better you better get on your management and start hustling. Okay, so there are some changes for those of you who are going to getting the evaluation right now. We are addressing those new significant changes in the MOA. We do have just a Word document. Jim, can I just share that Word document with everyone on the call? That
yeah, that's the same document that I shared at WALDAB.
Okay. Yeah, so it was shared at WALDAB. I'm going to call upon one of my fearless coworkers to try to pop that in chat as well. It's just a Word document. So you might see the worksheet change a little bit as to where the placement of those significant changes go after July 1st. For now, we are making strong suggestions that you address those new things, even though you're not bound to that new MOA until July 1st of 2025. Any questions on that? All right, Karen, the 4 versus 6. So 6 maintenance standardization exercises are for the person that serves as the standard for the agency. So if you are the standard, you are required to go out with one of us to do 6. If you are internally standardized by someone who is your agency standard, 4 over 3 years. Okay. Yeah, Lori is asking for that sheet that was shared at WALDAB. All right. So I'm gonna, again, I have multiple screens. So I'm gonna ask one of my coworkers to share that. Okay. All right. So any questions on evaluations? You're gonna see some changes. The worksheet again will be updated. Some of us that are doing evaluations right now are going on a edited worksheet with those changes, but where those land in the worksheet might change slightly based on where they are in the MOA. So now I am going to turn it over to Mike. He's going to talk a little bit about report writing. Mike.
All right, I'm going to take control here, Carrie, so I don't have to say, next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
And of course, it's not letting me.
And I was on mute. I think we're going to have to do the next slide, please, because
yeah, I can't request take control.
Now can you?
No, now that completely went away.
Right. Make a presenter. There we go.
It still won't let me control.
Okay, well, next slide, please. It is.
All right, sorry about that. I changed my password today. I'm wondering if it's not authenticating me.
All right.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Oh, well, I guess I'll cover the slides and have Mike chime in. Okay, so we've had some questions about report writing. And so
Can you
when
pull the presentation up, Carrie? I'm not seeing anything on the screen.
Can everybody see the screen?
Biddy, no. Biddy. I can, Carrie.
I
saw it for a second, but now it's gone.
It's back to report writing on my end.
Okay. So sometimes screens will disappear. So you might have to open the window and put it on your main screen again. Can everybody, can no one see the screen?
I see it.
I'm good.
I see it.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. So report writing, when we think of report writing, you want to remember the purpose and the audience. And we actually had somebody come into our bureau meeting on Tuesday afternoon and talk about report writing, taking temperatures, and again, we always tell you to paint this picture. Oh, all right. It looks like Mike took control. So, Mike, I will turn it over to you.
All right. All right. Did you just want to finish your thought there?
I will. So again, you want to paint a picture when you're writing that report. Something that really stuck in my mind that this gentleman said was when you're documenting things like temperatures, somebody else should be able to go in and replicate that temperature that you took in that past inspection. That really stuck out to me. So when we're doing these evaluations, a lot of what we look at is report writing. And there's also the policy on report writing that we're going to drop in the chat as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
All right. So report writing, you always want to be mindful of who the audience is. And they should comprise of 4 things when you're writing orders. They should be accurate and factual, clear and concise, descriptive, and free from errors. So writing that is clear, concise, and well organized and follows other best practices appropriate to the subject or field and intended audience. So you want to use the active voice, use short sentences and paragraphs, be specific. You know, where did you see it? What cooler? You know, north, south, east, west. part of the kitchen, use common everyday words, avoid acronyms or abbreviations, and don't rely on the auto-generated language in HealthSpace. You'll have to rewrite it if necessary to clarify what you observed. For Certified Food Protection Manager, if it's noted as a violation, this does need a follow-up and should follow the department's guidance documents. So capturing information. Temperatures should be captured and noted as cold holding, hot holding, reheating, cooking, cooling, etc. You could abbreviate it as well. If you're marking the temperatures in, then they should also be in the temperature log. Please indicate the sanitizer name, not just the type. And make sure to capture all your facility information on the correct pages. So writing violations, operators should be given the opportunity to correct a violation prior to the inspector completing a routine inspection. Inspectors should document any violations the operator is able to correct on-site with both the corrected on-site COS abbreviation and what the corrective action was. If there's excess violations or they cannot correct priority violations, a reinspection is needed. And a report should be written on-site and a signature captured once the report has been gone over and can be left with the operator or emailed. Reports should be written within 24 to 48 hours of the inspection, if for some reason you're not able to write it on-site.
Mike, there's some questions, or at least one question in the chat about cold holding. Can you see chat?
I can.
Okay,
cold hold
someone
milk,
asked,
cheese.
can we combine all holding, an example, cold holding, cheese, milk, comma, 4140.
If you still spell out what you took temperatures of, yes, I would say that's fine. Like in the example there, cold holding milk and cheese. Now, if you have higher temperatures, you'd probably want to break that out specifically because you're going to address that in your, presumably in your report for violation. And that is all I have for report writing. If there's any other questions?
I am not seeing any questions.
Just
So,
a thank you.
Like I said, I'm trying to dig up the policy, the department report writing policy. And I did drop the changes, the significant MOA changes in the chat as well. We'll get those to you. We are going to have some time here for questions too. So wrapping up, objectives review. So we talked about what was new and we reviewed that. We went through committee work, what our committees are doing. We talked about standardization, information, and data, and expectations for 2025. Okay. Woo! Are there questions? Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the inspection report documentation policy is on SharePoint in the retail mailbox, and we are going to be looking at that and revising and updating and actually incorporating a little bit more rec descriptions in that inspection documentation as well. So what's in there is still valid, but look for a new, improved, updated inspection policy guidance document.
All right, so one of my coworkers is probably going to cringe at this. So it looks like some of you cannot open the Word document. If you cannot, if you could just email the mailbox, you can see the email on the bottom of the slide and request that, we can get that to you. Otherwise, like I said, we are working on the new worksheet as well. And Jim did provide those changes during the WALDEB meeting. And you can see the contract has been shipped out and should have been received by us too. Other questions? Is there, again, the updated standardization manual is on SharePoint. I think some of you had trouble opening that too. It is on SharePoint. So if you want to request that, or if you can't find it on SharePoint, just email the mailbox and we can get that out to you. And let's see, Sarah Scanlon has a comment. Healthspace Cloud offers a new box certificate number for the Certified Food Protection Manager section. Am I correct that we should all be recording that if a number is provided on the certificate, this box is new on Healthspace Cloud? Jim, I'm going to ask Jim.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, absolutely. You're going to have some jealous agents out there, Sarah, because everybody's waiting with bated breath for the new Healthspace Cloud. Other questions? Any comments from my team? I thought we were going to have a lot more questions than this. That's okay. You know, there was a lot of questions during the presentation. It's being rolled out. Again, the health space coming to agents. It's being rolled out in tiers. Jim, can you explain how that is being done?
I'm not privy to the internal operations on what their schedule is, but I can confirm that you're on track with what you're saying, that there's only so many IT health space staff that can assist. We want to make sure people are properly trained, that they have a good understanding before we move on to do training with other people. So I know that they're going to take it in small pieces. And, you know, I think the goal is that, you know, it'll probably take, you know, 6 months to a year before everyone probably is fully on board. Yeah, they are going to take it in small pieces so that they can provide the individual attention that each agent needs and make sure that they are comfortable before they move on to the next agent.
Thanks, Jim. I see Todd had a question. Is there a type over template for the HACCP verification form? Mike answered. No, you can convert it if you want. You can even just make a City of Menasha HACCP verification form as long as it has all the components when you're doing that HACCP verification as part of that routine inspection. But as for standardization, actually, I take that back. There might be one. I'll have to check. Todd, if you want to just email and to remind me, that would be great. Any other questions? Any final thoughts? I know we had some information go out, and I want to thank some of the other team members. Paul Humphreys from our Meat Bureau is on. We have our rec team here. And we had an amazing attendance from all of you. So yeah, in tears. Tears. All right. Thank you, everyone. This will be recorded. Once we have that recording set, we will make an announcement, and you will find it on the DATCAP YouTube channel.
There's a question about cheese TCS.
Is cheese TCS? Cheese is TCS, but it does have some date marking exceptions. All right. Did that answer, Deanna? Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Nice job, Carrie. You're muted.